I want to hear the story of how you manifested cinnamon rolls, actually.
I was sitting outside. I actually had a wonderful morning. I was sitting in my side yard sunning. I have a cold plunge outside, and it's just a freezer correctly attached to electricity, a freezer full of water. And then I finished and had no dreams of cinnamon roll, but then a cinnamon roll showed up. So I was pretty happy about that. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Good for Business podcast. I have invited everyone I like. I love you too, kids and wife. Everyone that I'm attracted to in the personal growth space here at one time. So we have a panel on personal growth and the value of coaching. It's the first time we've had multiple people in here. I will let you introduce yourselves, and we'll start with Amy Bogue, who is, in fact, Josh's sister.
Thanks, Colin. My name's Amy Bogue, and I run the Allegro Family Clinics and Family Pharmacies in town.
Yaakov?
Hi, everyone. I'm Yaakov Weinstein. I'm a life coach, firefighter, and EMT. And I'm based out of Starkville, Mississippi, and so glad I ended up here.
Yeehaw. Annebelle?
Hi, I'm Annebelle. I'm a leadership coach specialized in high performance. I'm also a mom of 5 and a pilot wife. And originally from Minnesota, but we got planted here in Mississippi. But we love it.
Hooray. I'm Colin Krieger. I work here. So I wanted to get this podcast together because I've had such a great time. I've had 20 years of personal growth education, that sort of stuff, and I've been addicted to that. And first time I talked to each of y'all, I was like, yeah, nerding out. And the guys from the studio talked about that when Annabelle came. We had an extra 20 minutes, and we just fully just locked in and nerded out about stuff. And so I wanted to talk about that, and then also coaching from y'all's perspective, and then the value of coaching. And I'll let Amy kind of start on that. You get coached, but you also, it's an integral part of your team, over 100 people. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We have about 171 people. So our executive team gets coached, and it has transformed everything. It's nice having a third party opinion and someone to hold your team accountable. And it's been really good.
It's
and
even more than training. It's coaching.
Yes, absolutely. Professional coaching. Uh-huh.
And Yaakov, why don't we talk about how long you've been in the coaching game?
2017.
How'd you get in there?
For me, I got into it just because I looked around at my own upbringing, the people I was constantly surrounded by, and I just did not want the life they had. And I just had a sense that there was a way to live a more enjoyable and a better life, and the ways they were telling me or the life I was required to live, just that's just not going to cut it. And that just led down, first just a lot of wrestling with life, really just trying to figure out how to have a better life, and then slowly being introduced to personal development against my will, and then very quickly seeing, how I had my head shoved up my butt, not realizing it. And that just catapulted my life. And I think what I learned is so many of us walk around thinking we know how to live just because we're not dead. But the human being is so complex, physically, spiritually, there's so much to us, and we're not really told how to operate our human skin bag. It's just hooray, I didn't die today. What a tremendous accomplishment. And then we look at people who are successful, and it's oh, they were handed on a silver spoon, or luck, or this, that, and the other thing, or God loves them more, or whatever the reasoning is. But I think a lot of it really or what I've learned is that it really comes down to learning who and what we are. And from that, literally anything you want is possible. You can't become a fire truck, but you can become a fireman.
And I'll ask you the same question, Annabelle, but I do want to break this in because I forgot to say it. We have 4 people in the room who are usually the person in charge of the room, running the room. So if y'all have questions for each other or points, just jump in or something. There's things. So how did you get into personal growth and or coaching?
Man, I got into personal growth specifically probably about 8 years ago. I was just kind of hit a new rock bottom in my health and fitness. So I started the coaching area in health and fitness, found I loved it, got into personal development, and was just a whole new world was opened up. And I realized that I knew I needed to take ownership of some things in my life, but I wasn't sure how. And so getting into personal development and reading the books and everything, it sort of gave me an avenue to do that and a process for it. And so the past year, I switched over to high performance because it's more tangible, I feel like. And it's just been, yeah, like Amy said, it's transformed everything for me and my life.
Any of y'all remember the first book and or tape other than Tony Robbins and late night TV? That depends on your age group. So I just turned 50 in my skin bag. But I remember Tony Robbins forever. And of course, that was probably one of the biggest breakthroughs for me was in 2013 or 14 was Tony Robbins and Brian Buffini. And a lot of old school guys went when the internet really got rolling. I'm aware it got rolling in the 90s, but when it really got rolling, when we were more than email for most people in 2012 and 13, Tony Robbins did an amazing move that changed the personal growth industry. He changed 90% of his content from being paid to free. So he went from 90% paid content, 10% free to the opposite. 90% of my stuff's free, and the 10% that cost money cost more, but it was out there for free. And then a whole bunch of sales trainers and personal growth followed suit over the next couple of years, and podcasts. That was the second wave of podcasts. I don't know if y'all remember that podcasts were pretty big and when y'all were wee lads in 2005. But there wasn't, you had to listen to them on your desktop, so it wasn't quite as amazing. I think my first book was The 1 Minute Manager, and I started off on that and then had books on tape. And most of it then was sales training stuff for me. I was at Papa John's, doing corporate marketing type stuff. So it was a little easier than what do I need to do today? It's like, what can I get you to do today? And then, I was trying to think. Jesper Stubendorf, Stubby from the base, who's the what's the commander of the base? What's his official title? Deputy commander of the base. So he made a fatal mistake last night. We sat here and we talked in my backyard about stuff, and I told him we were having the podcast. He's been on it, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, have you ever read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell? I'm like, you are in trouble. He's like, why? I'm like, we're going to go have lunch, and we're going to talk all day long, and now I'm listening to the Tipping Point audiobook, and I'm all excited. And I was like, that's all it takes, man, that's all it took from the three of y'all is to say one thing like that, and my ears perked up. We don't always have to go in a circle, but do you remember nobody on the podcast knows we're in a circle. We're in a circle.
Yeah.
Full disclosure. So Amy, you're on my left. Do you have any recollection of your first thing? Other than I would imagine a lot of your personal growth comes from your dad and your grandfather, right? Because
right.
Family run business until you tripled it and expanded it. So
yes, still get to learn from them, thankfully. But I guess about 2019, I call it an email from God. I don't know how. I think I was looking for a planner, and somehow I found Michael Hyatt's planner. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's a leadership guy and written a ton of books. And I got an email that I really resonated with, and it talked about just how positive employees will radiate 25 feet in your business, but the negative ones radiate 50 feet. And I was having some issues with people, and I'm like, oh, let me see who this guy is. So then he's written a lot of books on just leadership and development. And that's how I got into this type of growth for me. And I actually did coaching for a while as well through him. He had a program. And that's where I met my coach taught me how to coach. And now she's been my coach for a couple of years. So it's been a really fun full circle moment. But yeah, I love Michael Hyatt.
Coaches need coaches too, right?
Yes.
That's something that's Yaakov and I have worked through a lot of the stuff he's told me. I had a great meeting with a friend this morning who's going through some tough times. And he was like, well, I want to do this. And I'm like, get into connect with the emotion of what this feels like in the future. Like what feels like, if you do this, how do you feel? Not everything's he wasn't talking about a positive thing. He was talking about, I have to mention something bad to somebody. I'm like, I don't know if I should do it. I'm like, well, how do you feel in the future looking at that emotion? And we've talked a lot about how it's affected my kids, where my kids have come back to me and I hear, we talked about the movie, The Butterfly Effect, where there's this one point where the guy in one of these flashback memories is going, how are you doing this? And the kid is essentially altering the past memory. And I hear that from my kids because they see something in the back seat, like where my daughter, I fell down in a celebrity basketball game and we were leaving and she's like, Dad, I'm just glad you didn't let yourself get down. I'm so proud of you for working through that situation. And you just shows you're going to get through anything. I'm like, the heck was that? And then she's like, can we go get a Slurpee?
Yeah.
So any memories of your first personal growth stuff that stuck?
So they all stuck, but I've had a very interesting life. So I think the way things have developed, like the first book that really opened up my mind to this is not just a fantasy, there is something more out there, was A Thinking Jewish Teenager's Guide to Life by Rabbi Akiva Tatz.
I've missed it. I got to be honest. I haven't seen it.
That there was this one example that he gave in there that was like talked about how inspiration is like lightning. You're in a pitch black, it's pouring rain, you have no clue how to go, and then there's a flash of lightning for a moment, and you can see clearly for miles where there's to go, what there is to do, and that's essentially what inspiration is. And just that example like really stuck with me. I mean, it didn't manifest into anything until much later when I went to another call of the chauffeur. That was the first personal development program I was involved in. But that's when things really started to manifest in my life. First, I used personal development as a way to be a royal jerk. You know, I'm self-entitled. I know who I am, and I matter, and I deserve, and this, that, and the other thing. But I think that helped me speed up a bottom of just pure unmanageability that just turned into something real. And then just, I would say I don't know the first, but the person who had the biggest impact on my life would be Peter Sage. Peter Sage has just completely opened up my mind. It allowed me to deal with a brother's suicide, just things that would have been completely like upending. Just like I was able to use them as a way to share and inspire others.
How about yourself, Annabelle?
Well, mine's a little bit funny, like when I think of it, because the first personal development book I remember reading was The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And it's funny because with the community I grew up in, anything personal development, self-help, anything like that was like woo-woo. It's like, oh, there's something wrong with you. Why would you be? Why do you need that? There's something wrong with you. Or, what have you. So a friend of mine had given me this book because I had just started my virtual coaching, and I had a 4-month-old at home, and I had like all these other things I was trying to deal with. And so I was a little offended at first. I'm like, I don't need a miracle morning. But I started reading it and applying the steps. And what I found was that, wow, it's the simplest little habits and the simplest little mindset tweaks and thoughts that build that self-trust with yourself. And you start accomplishing things you thought were impossible. And it's like addictive. And so then from there, I moved on. The same friend referred me to Brendon Burchard, his podcast. And then I read his High Performance Habits. And those totally changed my entire perspective on my life. So those are my favorites.
Brendon Burchard's the only one that got the head shake from everybody. So
Yeah.
We can go into there. Yeah, I mean, I call coaching the application of personal growth. So there's so many things where best thing Yaakov has taught me is like, would you tell that to somebody else? I remember talking to you about like negative self-talk in the middle of the night, and I said, I wouldn't randomly call Annabelle at 11 o'clock at night and call her a piece of shit for eating a brandy or a cinnamon roll. She brought me cinnamon rolls the other day, and which was very thoughtful. Thank you. But
You're
same
welcome.
thing. If I warmed one up last night at 11 o'clock and ate it with a glass of milk, I wouldn't be like immediately think, is anybody else doing this? I'm going to really dig into him and call him a horrible name,
Yeah.
So that's part of one of the big steps. What is the application of coaching in your business, like the physical part of it? Are you taking people apart, or is it intentional? Like every Tuesday you talk to someone for others, not for you
others.
or for others?
Yeah, I meet with my coach twice a month, and then depends on which employee. They'll either meet twice a month or once a month and just have that coaching call. And then sometimes we put them in groups. Like sometimes there's problems that we all need to solve together. So 2 or 3 of us might gather with our coach who's gotten to hear perspective from everyone. And it's just really helpful to have that outside opinion and wisdom that's non-biased, because they're stepping back. They're not in the business every day, but they can see things like my blind spots or some of their blind spots. They get to call those out and hold us accountable. It's very good.
Yeah, having that outside perspective in all areas of our life is whether it's a coach or a friend, like we're not meant to go at this alone. And I think a lot now it's, a lot less, but I think a lot of us, it's like, got to bootstrap it. What does it say about me if I can't figure this out by myself? What's wrong with me if I need this? Those are all lies.
I'm going to share one story that we were just talking about. So Braden Sansing, who does all the video production here, is leaving. He's moving to California. He's like 22 years old. Of course, what an awesome time to just pack up and leave. But back to like, this will serve me somehow. Like every lesson in life that you don't learn until months later or whatever. This Michael Francesi was this mafia dude who came and spoke in town at a Christian men's conference in early August, like a month after we started the podcast. And I'm like, cool, what a great break. They called me and asked me to help with the conference. I can meet him. This will serve me so well. It'll make the podcast bigger. It's going to be a great thing. They told us no for like 3 or 4 weeks. And on the ride to the show, I rode on the ride with him and charmed him. And he's like, yeah, we'll go ahead and do one, 20 minutes or whatever. I get it. It was beautiful. And it really didn't help the readership or the viewership or at all. Did nothing at all. Fast forward like a month ago, Braden calls me and he's like, well, I've been following him and his daughter started a podcast and she posted on Instagram, like, I need somebody to edit my podcast. And he jumped on there, got the job editing, sending the video of our thing as to get the job. And now he's moving in California to go not only help them, but do other things. And I just, the moment he called me, I was just over the moon. You know what I mean? And I don't know if 20 years ago, if I'd have been like, well, I didn't get anything out of this or whatever, but I was just so thrilled the way I'd be for like a parent. I told somebody this the other day where I was telling a story about trying to be gracious and appreciative of things going in your life and your life happening for you or through you either way. And I said, I look back now at the teachings from my mom and my stepfather, who were, unbeknownst to me, were personal growth gurus. My mom with a 35-year AA chip in her pocket, my stepfather with 35 years worth of AA chips in his pocket. He went down swinging. But like 15 years ago, I worked at the Packet newspaper here, and there was a phenomenon, mainly in the African-American community, of them fixing up cars, and they put Oreo logo on the side, or Ritz crackers, or Dr. Pepper on the car. And like, some of these guys were gang affiliated or pretty tough guys, and the other ones were just car kids. And I remember like at 2 a.m, like seeing their cars at a gas station and just being like, yeah, that's so good. Their little car club, like sincerely, like the way a grandma would, like good for them with their car club. And if I can get in that position of life where you think about that all the time of some good will come of this, I'm still super excited for Braden on that. But y'all have any examples of how to set yourself up for that? You know, not just in the long term, but like these are reinforcing my beliefs. Coach people.
You mean set yourself up for
Gratitude.
And seeing hardships as actually a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block? Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one.
If not, y'all can talk about through me, with me, for me, all that. You want to break that down for them?
Well, I mean, even just getting to like what you were saying before, I think, you know, we had this experience in our work together. I think there's a lot of things that just show up in our lives, or at least they feel like the way we feel, the way we view the world. Like, yes, a lot of it is predisposition from the way we're raised by our parents and beliefs that get put on us before we can choose them for ourselves. But then little silly things like how much of our stress comes from just the fact that our sleep is an issue, or we're eating food that has our body mainly inflamed most of the time. So like, I think there's an element of taking a certain amount of responsibility of like, okay, like if I put water in my car, I know it's not going to run. So what's the equivalent of that for the human body? So there's a certain amount of that matters. And so when you just take responsibility for sleeping well, you know, the food that you're putting in your body, you know, nervous system regulation, how much of your stress like immediately just goes away. So now once I do that, now I have an ability to actually start, okay, what's the psychology aspect of it? How do my thoughts play a role in it? Like, where can I start getting in and doing something different? And then from there, it's so easy. Like, I think one of the things that really shifted things for me is they say it's Albert Einstein. I don't know who it actually was, but he says the most important question facing humanity is, do you live in a hostile universe? And I think that is a question we all answer every day, throughout the day, repeatedly, consciously or not. And so many things happen from there. And the truth is, if I live in a hostile universe, I can't be grateful. It's just not possible. I'm watching my back. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. I'm waiting for the next horror show to present itself. But once I can start taking care of a lot of just like my baseline biology, I can start looking at the psychology, and I can start getting into, okay, so now what do I actually want to do? So once I recognize that, hey, good and bad in every moment always exists, which am I going to focus on? Does that even matter? Well, when I look back at my life, I see, well, I was constantly seeing how people are out to get me, and everything is going wrong. And there was just more of that. The biggest time that I realized that was I was in New York. I was standing on a street corner, and I was so mad. I was just seething with anger. And I noticed it, and I just like, why? I just closed a really big deal. Like things were going my way. Why am I so mad? And I just happened to notice, like I just started getting more into this personal development stuff, and I noticed my body posture. It was my standard default standoffish, angry, miserable posture. My face was scowling. I was, closed off, everything. So I stopped. I was like, okay. And I just shook that out, took a step over, relaxed my face, and immediately everything changed. So I think those are very important steps that are absolutely necessary to take in order to be able to come from a place of gratitude, because otherwise you're fighting against yourself, and you're always going to lose when you do that.
Yeah, and you can create your environment. I think Joe Dispenza says that, where it's like, every single person in the world knows you can be miserable and sit inside and make yourself sick, but they don't believe that you can make yourself well.
Yeah.
And that goes back to my favorite phrase, a reticular activator. For the people at home that don't know, that means if you're shopping for a Honda Accord, you will see Honda Accords everywhere. And sometimes I have to wake myself up in the morning and look at my cup that says "Make Positivity Louder" that I've thrown all over town, to remember that you've got to look for that thing and you have to actively do it. Yaakov and I have talked about meditating in the middle of the day or taking a heart breath and doing something where there's a sequence of events, which I just had. Just lost a big deal, just had a toilet break at a rental, just had a higher than normal quote for countertops or whatever. And you can just keep going. And everybody's been in that where this day's just unraveling and it's horrible or whatever. And it's kind of hard in that space to go. Everybody can speak to that, of stopping and taking yourself out of it when you've trained yourself to say this isn't the best day ever, and letting it fall. Because my old defaults used to be like, well, the financial pressure, I'm just going to define it. I'm going to look at how much money I need to get through this month, and otherwise I'm going to get crushed, other than, everything's already worked out to this point. It's kind of crude to say everything's worked out to the point that you jump off the bridge. But, everything has worked out in my life to this point. I've survived. I've been there. Mm-hmm. Or comparing yourself to somebody else. It's a great quote on Instagram or whatever, where it's like, imagine you would have jumped up and down to be in the life you're in today. That's not necessarily the first step to working through that stress. So
I was thinking one of your posturing comments made me think, just a tidbit for everybody. Bob Goff always says, if you need to make a point or argue, to have your hands palms up and put them on your knees. And it's really hard, like a lot of times, to your point of like clenching a fist if you're in an argument or just that posture. But if you argue with your palms up, is so helpful. Or if you have to have a difficult conversation, just have your palms up. But I do think also people underestimate breath work. And like you were just describing that awful day, just stopping and getting some deep breaths and oxygen to your body can really reset that whole attitude and everything. I was telling a friend, my friend Justin leads really beautiful breath work. And a couple of years ago, we lost a pillar in this community, Cherie Labat. And I found out on the airplane flying to our conference. And so I was pretty emotional there, but he led a breath work 7 a.m. on the mountains. And it was super healing. I know that sounds crazy, but the way that he led it for an hour, it's like it reset my entire body. I was able to grieve while deep breathing. And then I felt restored. So I just wanted to plug that in because I think breathwork is very powerful.
Yeah, that's nervous system regulation. I mean, essentially that we are a series of chemical reactions. Like, we like to make it sound more complicated than that, but that's really what we are. And it's so easy for all that stuff to get out of whack and to feel something just because that's the way I've always felt. We're all about energy efficiency. So it's easy for my cells to keep things going the way they've always gone. But things like breath work, I mean, we need oxygen, like really badly. And think about how you are when you're stressed. You're breathing more shallow. That's what happens when your sympathetic system is going. It all comes down to, like, our breath is the easiest way to quickly reset our nervous system. And take a day where it's like, yeah, well, we'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah, and if you're wondering how to do that, there's so many little 2-minute videos, and it has a little ball, and it'll tell you to breathe in, hold your breath, breathe out. You can have someone guide you. I think Spotify has some. Just listen to it for a minute and kind of stop in your day. It can really reset it.
And the most interesting phenomenon for me behind breath work is how often I forget why I was in a bad mood. Where it's like, I'm like, and a lot of times it wasn't like an actual issue. A lot of times it was somebody phrased something the way your mom did when she was mad at you, or something happened similar to the time before. One of the biggest lessons I learned in real estate was, like, deals fall apart and things happen. And Meg, who's our friend, Mel Robbins at 325-4321. I don't have time for 54321. 321, make the call. So often I get calls from another agent or whatever, like, deals apart, and I make the call real quick. And when I say nearly every single time that I've waited 5 minutes, and most people would wait hours, and I've waited days to give bad news, but I'm back in the past, but now I do it so quickly, 100% of the time in my mind, the client responded and like, okay, well, you took off, people have told me that, peel off a Band-Aid. In reality, their answer was probably the same as my day wait, but I framed it as in, oh, I'm a professional, I'm doing this better, as opposed to I just lost $10,000. And that's that we had a deal this morning where another client of ours bought a property. Clearly, we told him over and over again, like, use us. He could have used us. It wouldn't cost me anything. He didn't. And me and another agent lost out on thousands of dollars. And she was very upset. And she's like, you should text him or call him. I'm like, I'm going to meet him and go tell him, like, hey, we've done a lot of business together. This hurts us. Can you please use this as an opportunity in the future for us to do it? And I'll do the same. And just be done with it. But I'm not going to do that on a text. Because again, now I'm thinking about it. Your hand is clenched when you're looking for text, and you're beat up like this. And that's probably why everybody putting mean comments on it is probably on a flip phone. Two gripped hands to be angry at the phone.
Yeah. I'd like to add a note, like what each of you have been sharing about is what I'm seeing the pattern, just kind of circling back to your question, like how do you live out gratitude in your life? And each one of you have kind of given an example of essentially taking radical responsibility for yourself in whatever situation or circumstance you're in. I think that's huge especially for the listeners who feel like they're in the middle of something huge right now that feels impossible. Just to kind of paint a picture for you, I had escaped domestic abuse when I was in my 20s and I had my 2 little toddlers with me. And one of the hardest, most humbling lessons I had to learn was to take radical responsibility for what I had been through and for how I was treated. Not taking the blame for it, like I didn't deserve that, but taking responsibility as in my ability to respond to the situation, choose how I want to feel about it and how it's actually going to build me, the resilience, the patience I want to move forward. So for you listeners out there, whatever you're in right now, whether it's hard or you feel like it's impossible, look at the challenge you're in right now and think of, okay, whatever this has brought me, what resilience has it given me? What muscle is it building in me? And how am I going to take this and make this test part of my testimony?
Mm-hmm. And to your point, and you're bringing up a thought too, another thing that Michael Hyatt taught me that has served me well is assume positive intent. And so when you can do that, even in your situation, it's like, if you can go in with the posture, you're going to assume positive intent that client didn't mean to do that to hurt you, then it changes the whole way you approach the conversation. And it's helped us work through whether that's business or personal. And you have to remember, like, I mean, I'm meeting all you guys as adults. So I'm meeting you either about the middle of your book or towards the end of your book, maybe. And so I didn't know you'd gone through that abuse. And so sometimes when people react or do things, it could be from something in the past. And I think we often forget that too. So if I can come in with that posture, like, let me assume positive intent. I didn't know that past trauma. That may be why you did this or acting this way. It really reframes and helps with that mindset of gratitude, I guess.
Yeah.
Going back to that.
I think so many of us were raised by parents who were just trying to survive. Like, yeah, some may be doing better than others, but I think the strongest instinct we all have is to survive. And because of that, like that is the human biology. It's all about not dying. And when that's the baseline of your physiology, your worldview is going to be a very certain way. And it's not easy to get out of it. You have, I heard someone say once, he said, we have trillions of cells in our body, and it's more energy efficient for our body to change our mind than our mind to change our body. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of resistance. And it's that for me, that's how I grew up in an abusive home, experienced a lot of homelessness, just stuff that we're not meant to really experience. But from the way that I was viewing the world, it was like I had so much proof this is a shitty place. God is an asshole. I had proof, found just mountains of proof. And to get to a point of being able to interrupt that, it feels very unnatural, and it takes sometimes something bad happening to really force us out of the way we've always been going. But what I try to do now, what I do with my clients, and really what I just try to share with people as much as I can, is that if we can work on shifting that view and getting to a place of, everything is happening for me, and I can, look at my kids and interact with my kids as a place of this place there's an opportunity here. What is it? I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know when I'll get to see the fruits of it. But essentially, that's me putting in them to make it that much easier, so they have that much less to fight against, to see that and prove that for themselves. Because essentially, I don't think people wake up in the morning and say, how can I make your day absolutely impossible? We're all just trying to have the best experience possible. But so many of us feel like we have so little resources that we just don't know how to do that. And it ends up being stepping on and running over a lot of people.
Well, that's where that 8 to 10% of the population, that's, the Eeyores or whatever, that are, no matter what you post online, they're going to say something about it. Even those people really aren't miserable all day long. In fact, they're probably getting some adrenaline from posting those comments and thinking they're cool. And you got a very, very small percent of the population who are maybe either mental problems, narcissism, or really do have it out for people. But I've told my kids, I'm like, even the guy that's got a voodoo doll of me who's stabbing it, he's got a nap sometimes, and he's having good dreams, or he's eating some food that he likes. It's not all day, and people are not thinking about you all day. I've said that phrase a lot, where the casseroles stop coming. You have cancer, or Keaton Blocker, my friend who's dying, eventually people are out of energy. And they're not trying to be mean. They just can't, we all have people we see who do throw themselves their own GoFundMes over and over again. And you're just and they just don't, because you've got to move on, and everybody's got parents who are sick and all this other stuff. And it's overwhelming, but it's also bad for you to think that they're sitting there thinking about you, because they're not. And even in a positive way, we can't all sit here and meditate and say how attractive we are. And I mean that in a good, an energy way, although your haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things to tell my kids. They're having about the 3 teenage daughters. So there's fights that come up with girls or disagreements. And I'm like, they are probably spending some time not liking you every day, but they're very easily distracted the next time they scroll up on the screen. And I said, if you just show them love, and a great thing, I was just talking to my friend this morning, Russell Poole, who was on a podcast about this, talking to him about an hour ago about this, where I said, I was kind of out of place yesterday. It really wasn't anything going wrong. It was probably food, because it was 10 in the morning, and I didn't eat breakfast, and which I didn't want. And I'm scrolling through, and I just zipped up the Tony Robbins podcast and went to an episode from 9 years ago. And they start talking, and 5 minutes into it, they start going about, well, if you're having stress with somebody else in your life, including yourself from last week or last year, take a deep breath and go, I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. And which is a mantra to say over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I was just I was like, which was funny, because I had thought about that the day before. I haven't done that enough, because somebody was a jerk, a jerk to me last week. And that's what had happened. Then I looked back, I'm like, oh, well, that guy was kind of a jerk to me. And so then I wrote an email to my boss explaining why he was a jerk to me, which would have been my therapy 10 years ago. It's let's lay it out. Let's talk to somebody else about it who's just going to reinforce that he was a jerk to you. And then I've been doing that now for 2 days straight. Not even listening to the podcast every time I'm in the car. Not about him, just in general, of speaking that into the world. And you may be the best, you may know too, and I don't know if you ever, can you explain the hierarchy of through me, for me, to me?
Sure. So I learned about this from Peter Sage.
Yeah.
And I think So to me is victimhood or victimization. That's a place of seeing the world as everything is happening to you. Everyone's out to get you. And then with some work, you can get to a place of buy me, which is better, but you're still to a certain extent wrestling the world. So it's like you're taking you're coming from a place of responsibility, but now you're fighting everything. Like it all has to, like, it's all going to happen. It's either going to happen because I do it or it's not going to happen because I don't do it. But so there's a little bit more power there, but it's not sustainable. Then you can get to a place where it's for me or through me. And now you're starting to like recognize that there's more to this world than just physical matter reality. Maybe you're internalizing some of the spiritual or religious beliefs that you have, and you recognize that everything comes from God, and if God is good, then there's a reason why this is happening to me and why it's happening to me now. And that now you're like, now you're starting to see things as an opportunity. Now it's like, well, if I'm having this right now, this is $1,000 problem, but if I would be later on in my life where I'd have this, that, and the other thing, it would be $100,000 problem. So I'd much rather learn this now at $1,000. So, oh, wow, thank you so much for this opportunity. And just what's interesting is that just like what happens inside the body, like when we're under stress, there's less blood that flows to your prefrontal cortex. You literally have less ability to use your brain. So if not being able to come from a place of for me or through me, you're literally at a disadvantage. You're literally operating with your hands tied behind your back. Your brain is working, I think it's 20% less, maybe even 40% less. There's an actual number of how much less blood is flowing to your brain.
That's too many tigers, which they talk about with like every single stress we have on level is some sort of animal trying to kill us in a cave. Mm-hmm. And we don't know how to differentiate it. It was a big breakthrough for my oldest daughter to go like, I'm like, you understand, like your brain worried about this test is the exact same brain function that shuts you down when the tiger was coming to kill your ancestors. Not that far away from a monkey looking dude like me, ancestor wise. Could you kind of repeat what we talked about at the end of our last podcast where you were, and I talked to you once more on the phone about looking for things that reinforce the gratitude stuff, like where I'm saying, oh, this happened just now and it happened. Look, that's proof that this happened to me in a good way earlier.
Yeah. You were talking about the future proofing.
Yes.
In a way. Yeah. So on the last podcast we did, I was talking about, here, I'll just give the example of one of my clients. She was working at building her, like scaling her income in her business using social media as her main marketing platform. And one of the things that she noticed was she kept focusing on how many followers she would lose each reel. I didn't give this example last podcast, but here's an example. She kept focusing on the followers that she kept losing each reel that she shared. And her messaging was shifting a little bit and getting more pointed to who she's speaking to. And she came to me and she was just like, man, I am losing so many followers. I'm missing the point. What's happening? And so I was like, okay, how is this happening for you? So what is this proving for you? And I had her go look at her follows, and she had lost like 80 followers, but gained 70 new followers. I was like, okay, what is this telling you? She's like, oh, well, it could mean that I just suck at what I'm doing. Or it could mean that you're speaking to the people that you want to work with and you need to bring in. And even though she had lost 80 followers that week, she ended up making 4 extra sales. And I was like, okay, so what proof do you have here that what you're doing is actually working for you? She's like, well, I got more followers and more sales. Okay. And so throughout the week, I was like, okay, your main goal is income. She's like, yes. I was like, what proof do you have this week that money is flowing to you? Like, what do you need to believe? She's like, money comes easily, flows easily to me. It's like, okay, what proof do you have? She's like, well, my friend owed me $5 and she just gave me my $5 back. I was like, there you go, write it down. was like, did you find any coins in the dryer? It might have been your husband's. You might have already had it. However, did you find any coins in the dryer or a penny on the floor at the supermarket? She's like, actually, yeah. It's like, write it down. That's proof that money is flowing to you. It may not be the avenue you were expecting, but it's still working for you. And in that 30 days, she had, like, we had mapped it out. She did this practice for 30 days and she had more than doubled her success rate and her income. And her stress level was so far down. She felt so much better just by implementing this future-proofing practice.
Yeah, and a lot of people, including myself, when we start talking about manifesting, they think of what our kids are doing now, putting a Lamborghini on the wall of on their bedroom wall, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's somewhat intangible when we talk about in my mantras or whatever we say, where you're reaffirming things. People don't realize that, like, much like when you're shopping for a Honda Accord, if you put in your mindset that, like, I make this much money, I do this business, everything, it frames how everything you look at during the day. Like, this is a tremendous opportunity, or I lost my donut pharmacist, or whatever. There's a donut store that has a pharmacist here in town, and they got a new pharmacist, but it's not the same, and whatever. But, like, you lose employees or something, it's so hard in the moment to realize that. But if you're looking at it from a positive standpoint, you've already put this in your mind. I make this much money, I spend time with my kids, and you can reaffirm it. Those things, I'm not saying they magically show up, but you magically recognize them. So for the people who are afraid of manifesting, it's not real, you're looking for these opportunities so much more often. I can't tell you, when I'm really in the zone and doing it right, how I tend to hear the person in the restaurant talking about their uncle's house or a fundraiser need or something like that, where I tend to, instead of just going, not even hearing it, literally not hearing it, or just putting my name tag on before I go into Kroger or Sunflower, your locally owned and operated grocery store, and putting it in there. And then, like, I wore my shirt today and somebody at the gas station's like, Remax, isn't that real estate? And they just started on a thing. I'm like, of course I picked this shirt today. Of course I did,
I want to hear the story of how you manifested cinnamon rolls, actually.
I don't know. I was sitting outside. She brought cinnamon rolls Sunday morning. It was kind of late, like 10:30 or so. And I actually had a wonderful morning. I was sitting in my side yard sunning, listening to, I have a cold plunge outside, and it's just a freezer correctly attached to electricity, a freezer full of water. And it's got a little filter on there in the water. I can turn it up so the water blows. And I'm like, I'm sitting here reading my book and listening to my Peter Sage 30-minute DCA meditation. And then, like, I finished and had no dreams of cinnamon roll, but then a cinnamon roll showed up. So I was pretty happy about that. I want to talk on the nature of human beings after that. So your husband, Nathan Davies, came over delivering my cinnamon rolls. And we spent about 5 minutes once the cinnamon rolls talking, and he mentioned you had a new Hobart blender.
Yes.
And I didn't go yippee or look for, I told him, I was like, I used to work in the restaurant business and I had one. We had a 64 cord. Be careful around those things. He's like, oh, I know to be careful. And then, of course, just like men, all we talked about was people getting their arms cracked open and mangled in the thing. And I'm like, I haven't thought about that in like 20 years, about how this 18-year-old kid reached in and arm cracked in half. And then I'm like, we're taking him to the hospital. I'm like, do we open back up or what do we do? Anyway, that was a little aside, but it's all how you look at it. I don't know how his arm's doing now. I should look him up.
I was going to say too, you have a choice on what you put in your mind as well. And so the negativity, like I like, again, what Bob Goff says, he's like, turn down the microphone. So to your point of the comments on social media, like if something's going bad, I had a really bad one yesterday and everybody's screenshot and sending over. Guess what? I didn't even click on it and read it. Because I have a choice, there was some comments that we had to handle, but it's my choice to not. I had to make a very unpopular decision earlier this year. I got the nastiest emails and phone calls, but when the phone calls would come through and I knew they were going to complain, I deleted it. When certain people were texting some ugly things, I blocked their number. Like, I don't have to put that negativity in my mind.
I know the post you're talking about because I screenshot it and I didn't send it to you because I didn't think it. Not that I thought you knew
that I already got it.
I wasn't sending to get you riled up. I'm like, well, I know you care about customer service and you don't want to hear this sort of stuff. And I just sent it. I'm like, it's bad news. It'll find her.
Yeah.
Which is easy to do now. Like my wife watches the news, and every time I stop in there, and then she immediately watches Law and Order SUV or SVU, whatever it is. But she cannot understand that. Like, I go in there and make fun of it, but I'm like, this is not good for your brain to see like people getting assaulted and killed every day.
Well, that goes back to the reticular activation system you were talking about. It's like there's a part in our brain that literally decides, well, this is important, I need to pay attention to that. This is not important, you don't need to take that. I mean, just think about how much information your eyes take in. Like, you're not processing all of it. So if you think for a minute, like, hey, why am I choosing to focus on this and not that? Well, what does our brain or what does our self see as identity? Like, why can I hear my name across a crowded room in middle of conversation with someone? All of a sudden I hear my name because my name's important to me. So it's writing down those things, telling my brain, this is what's important. I'm going to provide the data that you need to focus on so that you can notice when it shows up, eliminating the negativity. It's like, yeah, because this stuff doesn't matter to me. And this is like important things that if only we recognize that this isn't woo-woo. This is our brain. This is how our brain operates. And we can use it in our favor because it's going to work anyways. And if I'm constantly watching, scary movies and thrillers and the news and all types of stuff, my brain thinks those are the things that are important and it's going to show me more of that, which is fine if that's how you want your life to look.
Yeah. To your point of writing down and gratitude, there's so many studies about just how gratitude is healthy. And so I have a prayer journal, and at the end of it, each month, the whole month, I record all of things that went well. And then at the end of the year, I type it all in a Google Doc, everything. And you forget. The mind is so forgetful unless you write it down. Like your example with your client is so important. So,
yes.
Very helpful.
Yeah, that's a really powerful exercise. Gratitude in general, like prove it, because our brain, we forget, like you said, and like I was having a conversation with a client at the end of 25, beginning of 26, and he couldn't really remember all the amazing things that happened, but for me, I've most of it written down, so it's easy for me to recall it. And I just started mentioning this, and like immediately he started recalling, oh yeah, this happened and that happened, and it's all there. It's just we're wired to survive. So, missing something, not paying attention to the good isn't necessarily about our survival, but oh, there's a car coming down the street. Oh, that's my survival. So that's that default mode that's always trying to creep in there. And when we learn that we can actually be responsible for the data coming in, like, oh my God, the output just completely changes.
Yeah.
On the magical tip too, where you have that feeling like you should say something to somebody, or you say somebody's name and they show up. Now I get hundreds of Facebook comments and messages a day, but I was talking to Josh Gillis, who runs the studio earlier, and I was talking about on Facebook. Her name is Meadow Range. She runs Jameson Pastures. And I'm like, she's this cool kid from whatever. And she's kind of dating like a clean cut guy. And we're talking about personality types, about how something, and then she just messaged me about something. And I'm thinking like, and then I go back and I think, so yesterday I was picking up my kid at school, and the police chief, who's from Columbus, might be going to Jackson. And I was saying he doesn't, and I think part of the reason he's going is because he doesn't feel appreciated here. And I was like, man, I'm going to send him a video, even though he's a tough cop guy. I was like, I'm going to send it. And then I didn't send it. At 3:15 yesterday, that was at 3 o'clock. At 3:15 yesterday, he was saving some kid's life on 15th Street North, a kid who shot himself in the leg. And I'm thinking, like, in hindsight, it would have been great if I'd done the video and sent it right before he did that. But then I sent it later that night. I was like, dude, I was going to send this to you at 2 o'clock today. Apparently you were busy. And I think of how many times that happens where I do it and somebody's like, oh my gosh, I needed that video today. And then there's sometimes where I forget, which I just forgave myself for, because somebody gave me an absolutely unbelievable 50th birthday card that I look at all the time. And so thank you for that. You can hear my voice crack. So I'll send you a video later. But it had like 3 things she liked about me that was on there.
Or
like,
50.
It was like 50 things. And then I was like, just now I was like, I feel bad that I never sent her that video that I thought about sending her. And so now we've talked about that a lot. I will pull the car over and be like, this is, I've referred to it as my mom used to call all the time. I said it in one of the podcasts where she would be just like, baby, I love you. And I'm like 23 years old. I'm like, okay. And I do that all the time now. I'm like, I'm just so proud of you. And they're like, all right, dude. Well, man, you're doing such a good job. And they're like, all right. And that's why I started sending videos, is because that pause where they're like, what are you doing to me? Like, for anybody, just it's hard to take compliments sometimes. It's hard to do it without downplaying it. I've gotten over that habit of like, oh, no. I'm like, oh, thank you. Take a deep breath. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
What you did.
That's definitely something I've had to work on too, is like the receiving of compliments and stuff. But I want to point out before we continue just what a gift it is for you to follow that prompting and the ripple to message people and stuff when it like pops into your mind. I call them promptings. And because you never know, like we said, what somebody's going through. And I don't know how many times I've either sent message, because I do the same thing. I send somebody a message or I receive a message and it was so pinpoint on. It's just like, how the heck did you know I needed to hear that right now? Or vice versa. So what a blessing that you get to use your influence to do that.
As far as all the supernatural stuff and personal growth and manifesting and all that, I think that's the biggest thing. I can't tell you how many times I've been at work at 10 in the morning and I'm like, I probably need to send these kids something about their house not selling and how bad it is. And then I've gotten distracted or your brain forgets or I see a cinnamon roll on my desk. And then like an hour later, I'm like, hey, any update on the house? And I'm like, man, if I had sent that would have been so perfect. You know what I mean? So I don't know what the connection is there. We can argue that it's a connection that we've had enough life experiences that we know this is probably the time they're thinking about it. And maybe because it's hot outside and or whatever. That's an amazing part of life that where you're like, oh, how cool is that?
There have been studies that were done where they've split apart DNA, put them on opposite side, or put them miles and miles apart and do one thing to one and something happens to the other. And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we are kind of all made up from the same stuff. There's a certain amount of interconnectability, whether you want to look at it from a religious perspective or biology, evolutionary perspective. I think those things show up in our brains because we're meant to do something about it. But it takes a certain amount of practice and discipline to actually be on it. And I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this also, like how many times you said it before, actually sent something to a client and it was like, that's the exact thing I needed to hear now, or just reaching out to somebody. And it's not always this dramatic, but sometimes you get in a conversation with someone, it causes them to miss something. And that made sure they weren't in an environment that would have been extremely detrimental to them. Like I think intuition is one of those skills that we're not really trained on or taught to hone in and practice and be disciplined in. But
yeah, and sometimes you can act like you can feel like so weird sending it, like, oh, I'm being such a dork right now. Like, it feels so silly to send this message, but you're like, okay, if you send it anyway, I promise the outcome is usually better than not sending it.
Mm-hmm. I remember that even with, honestly, the George Floyd stuff, just with racial reconciliation. It's like, I really wanted to reach out to some very close African-American friends and I felt dumb. I sat on that text for a while, but as soon as I sent it, the response was very positive and they knew I cared. That really led me to, in our clinic system, I decided, like, let me pull every African-American together in each clinic. And I just wanted to ask if they were okay. Because I actually saw a Harvard Business Review that said they're not. And so it was fascinating what I learned because I just said, look, I saw this. I just want to check on you guys. I know this is weird. And they're like, no, we're not okay. Like, I'm really worried for my son who's 16 and driving. And then they started telling us, to be honest, in the small town Mississippi, and this was 2020, that the differences in the clinic system of a nurse or a lab person, the questions that they would get on, do you really know how to give a shot? And they asked me, have you ever been asked that, Amy? I'm like, never, not once. And I'm a nurse by trade. So I learned a lot. Or at our receptionist, we'd have one Caucasian, one African-American, and how people wouldn't trust her to scan their ID, even though it's the same process as the person across the way. So it's very interesting. To your point of, like, I was really nervous to even broach it, but then once we did, I learned so much if you just stop and listen too. So,
well, and then talk about your perspective of the world. Like, I moved up here coming from New Orleans 20 years ago, and I almost stopped myself from introducing this. There, people kind of lean into politics. I'm like, I'm like everybody, like socially liberal, like leave me alone, and fiscally conservative on a local level, and they would like stare at me. And then I've had situations here where my perspective of the world, I was stunned when the dude from Barstool Sports in Starkville, Mississippi was there. And by the way, he's the entire Jewish population of Starkville, Yaakov is. And they like threw coins at him and it was like screaming like old usury comments to him, like, oh, take your money, Jew. And I'm like, who is having problems with the Jews in Starkville? Because you were at the firehouse that day. Like, I mean, you weren't causing problems. I'm like, what are you mad at? I know we just had a synagogue burned down, but like I had some Jewish gentlemen come in who were coming to work at one of the factories. One of them was, and they asked me first question out of the door. They're like, do you happen to know anybody who's flight instruction? I'm like, you were in the right car, buddy. And they called Annebelle's husband, Nathan. And he's like, hey, you got to do this, this, and this. First, you got to check with TSA. It sounds like you're coming from Israel. And he's like, do you know any Jewish people? I'm like, I know all of them. So I called Yaakov and put him on speakerphone. He's like, are you part of the Jewish community? He's like, you've got the entire Jewish community.
Right here.
And then talk about a perspective thing. I talked to him this morning, and they were like, you just told us all the thing about Columbus. And he goes, we're not telling the main guy. I forget his name. The main guy who's coming. I shouldn't say his name on there. We'll blank that out. Well, nobody knows him. Who's coming, and he's like, he hasn't watched the news there, but dear God. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, the night we left, the kid got shot at the boat launch. Then 8 people got shot in West Point, and then the synagogue got burned in Jackson. And he's like, how far is Jackson? I'm like, 2.5 hours. He's like, you told me that there was some hate, but that it's not organized. And I'm like, I was like, I don't know. There's a mentally ill guy there in West Point. There was a mentally ill guy that shot the kid on the boat launch. And I was like, I don't know about the guy down in Jackson, but he's just like, okay, it doesn't change our perspective. But he's like, it's interesting that you just said didn't know why he remembered the Barstool Sports guy. I'm like, I don't know why he was mad. Like,
I think it's important to mention though, that I just saw a notice somewhere that the U.S. Mint is taking pennies out of circulation. And for Jews who have been collecting the pennies that people are throwing at them or just bending down to pick up pennies, those are going to become super valuable soon. So there was something to it. Yeah, exactly. Happening.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, I was told we have just a gigantic glass jar change. Don't break into my house because, as y'all know, I am a gun owner now. I've won 3 guns in the last year. I gave away the most expensive one. I haven't picked up another one, which the gun store owner is beyond belief. And now I have a gun in a box in my house with no bullets or anything like that. So to protect my giant glass jar, like a 36-inch glass jar change, and the kids were like, "How much do you think is in there?" I'm like, "It's probably $400 or $500, but it's gone down in value 10% as I've been collecting it." So I can't wait to bring that to Kroger and dump it into locally owned Bank of Vernon does take your change if you have a bank account.
Hold the pennies though.
Hold the pennies?
Hold the pennies.
Yeah. If you need protection for it, just put your weird squirrel next to it. It'll be fine.
Well, I don't have a weird squirrel. I have
Sorry,
a
perfectly normal
squirrel that hangs out with me. I have a bobcat and I have a raccoon band.
Yeah, I think the squirrel keep people away. It's kind of freaky.
The guard squirrel.
The guard squirrel
and the gun in a box.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, like, what about the rifle you didn't pick up? I'm like, it's a 21. And everyone in the entire restaurant, Doug and Hazel's, just looked over like, there's no 21 caliber guns. They're all 22s. So, yeah, it's kind of fun. But I'm a city boy. What are you going to do? I have to think of some other questions, so I'm just going to keep talking. Y'all have any insight? We talked about how you started in coaching, right? So how many of your employees you have executives? You have 170 employees. The boss people are all in coaching?
Yeah, just the higher level management. So about 5 people total right now.
And how is that different? Is that different from training? Like, do you ever issue everybody a personal growth book or a Bible or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. We'll go through different things with the whole leadership team. Most recently, we did Patrick Lencioni. Do you guys know him? And the, what does he call them? 6.
Everybody's got 3.
I know. It's like all these numbers.
6 levels.
His gears. What is it? I'm going to think about it.
Yeah,
thank you. Tell me what it is. 6 working. It's the working
genius.
Yeah, the working genius. But he says 6 something like
types of working genius.
That 6 types of working genius. Yes.
Working geniuses.
But it was fascinating.
Those archetypes.
Yeah, there's what
the each one of the. I think I've gone into it about how to make up a perfect team. And you want each one of those parts in a team. Because
it's a gear. Yeah, and so the way he did it was you do want people from your team in all 6 different gears. So we just did that training in December, high level, and then he'll come back and train each division and what their results were and how we can best work together based on their talents. So yes, I do both. Try to give some different assessments and learn different types of personalities or behaviors just so people can understand why they do or don't get along. It makes a lot of sense. And of course, my geniuses are odd. You're supposed to have, like, they have them in 2 different levels, and I have 2 on the same level, which is not normal. Most people have 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. And so I just have tons of ideas. And then they realize, like, my top 2 people, we call them the dream killers. Like, I'm over here saying all these ideas and they're just shooting all my dreams down. But you need the balance on your team to make it go. So I do enjoy those types of things.
For those listening at home, genus is the type of animal family you're in, like a chimpanzee or anything like that. Or that's genus. Anyway, what I like to say, do y'all ever go to conferences or anything? I know you do, just for personal growth, or
Yes.
is it for
Yeah, I do enjoy those things for sure.
I am very defensive every single conference in the world, whether it's 2 hours, like even Forge, which is a local trade organization that gets people and working in the trades. They had a conference 2 years ago and it was like 3 hours. And I'm like, every time I've gone to any conference ever, I've come away with something, either from a speaker, but more often a connection in the crowd. Jessica Bell, who's an agent in our office, went with her husband to like a concrete and construction conference in Texas. And she's like, well, it's just fun as I could go. He's getting promoted, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're going to find some gem there. And her gem was she ran into 2 people from Columbus, one that was a wife going with somebody else, one with, and like in real estate to make a connection with a contractor is huge. And they spent like 8 hours together. And like most of the speeches didn't do anything for her. She didn't learn about selling concrete or whatever. But those little gems, like I went to Rita Felton's thing this weekend. They had the banana ball guy there, which was pretty cool. You know what banana ball is, Yaakov? I know you don't. This guy started a franchise 10 years ago in Savannah, Georgia, and they call it Banana Ball. And now they have 3 million people on the ticket waiting list. They were just in Mississippi State, and they come and do backflips. And he broke all the traditional rules. And everything he does is customers first. So like you pay 1 ticket price. There's no taxes. The food's free.
It's baseball.
While you're there. And it's baseball. And it's the games only last 2.5 hours. And they have dancing stuff all over the place. But I liked a lot of his talks where he was like, I think of the wording. I just told him that. Swing hard just in case you hit it. He said his dad used to tell him that all the time when he was growing up. And then do for one, which you can do for many. So like if you're trying to get 6,000 people on your followers and stuff, focus on a couple of them or one of them and just love them. And you'll be amazed at how many people you attract by taking such good care of that one person.
I'm actually curious, circling back to the beginning, you were talking about, which I appreciate, just your humbleness and humility in it, sharing how you used to be like angry and just a jerk in, I think that was the word you used. I apologize if this is not the right one. But then to now, so what was,
but
well,
I was trying to be clean and then drop the S word, so I figured it was fine.
But so what was there anything specifically that happened that gave you that shift? Like how, or was it a gradual process? What even brought you to the moment where you could openly just say that confidently, be like, yeah, I was an a-hole and now I don't think I am.
So I don't know if I've ever shared this before. So when I first went to this first personal development group or whatever it was, this retreat, I was married to my first wife, and her parents used to host it in their very large mansion house estate thing. And that was where, like, I knew I already had this idea that there was more to life than what I had, and I knew people had things that there's no reason I couldn't have. Like, I knew it was possible. So I was like, what the heck, I'll go. It's not, I don't even know if it costed me anything because my father-in-law was essentially putting it on. And I learned so much. I learned that how much I mattered, and like I said before, that was like I used that as a way to just speed up my bottom. Like I became so self-entitled. Like if someone wasn't going to do something for me that I felt I deserved, I was going to get it because I mattered and I deserved it. And that led me to, at some point, admitting myself into an inpatient rehab. It was mainly a drug and alcohol rehab, but I went there more for behavioral problems. Keep in mind, I'm about 20-something years old. I'm married with 2 kids. But I'd gotten to the point where it was like I knew I mattered and I knew I was deserving. But I also knew that this woman I was married to is just a monster and I need to get rid of her. But my parents were the source of all of my problems. So the least I can do is get some help on some of the deep-seated issues I knew I had so that I can possibly, do it from a clear-headed space, not from a place of anger. So maybe that'll spare my kids some trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how long I was in there for, where I was telling someone just what a bitch my ex-wife was. And as I'm reading this list to him, he's just looking at me like I'm crazy. And he's like, do you not see how much she loves you? Like, what are you talking about? Do you not hear anything I'm saying? He's like, yeah, that's my point. And it just, for some reason, it just shook me. And I was like, so I've seen everything so backwards that when I see someone loving me, I'm not even able to see that. I literally flip that upside down and see, well, there's obviously something wrong with you because I'm so screwed up. And if you love me, you must be even more twisted. And in that moment, I think that was the moment where things really shifted. And it was in that moment where it was like, holy cow, if this is who I've been and how I've lived, then I'm going to do everything in my power to, if she wants to reconcile, to figure this out. And we ended up getting divorced a bunch of years later, but that was when it was in that moment that everything shifted.
Talk about taking radical responsibility for your life, though. And what a gift that person was willing to say what could come across as harsh to anybody else, be like, yo, you're being dumb. Look how much she loves you. But that was such a kindness. And I think a lot of people don't have someone in their life like that, which is probably why one of the big reasons why I love coaching so much is because you get to be kind by saying those hard things that people need to hear to make the change they need. You're not just there affirming them. You're willing to tell them the hard things.
No, there's hundreds of things that Yaakov has told me that have been like, oh, and I'm not in the you're an a-hole sort of. He said asshole, I said a-hole sort of way. But we have a joke at my office that has calmed down in recent years, so I need to bring it back. And it's probably not the most kind thing. It may be a joke from 20 years ago, but there's a part of me, I think I've told you this, that is believes in the back of my head that none of this is real and I may be some special needs kid. Because I walk in and they're like, you're number one. And I'm like, yay. And they're like, here's another award, like, goody. And then I would go in my office and be like, well, the bills are late and this, blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, you're doing awesome. And I'm thinking, like, how blessed to be surrounded with people that are cheering you on. I thought about that Sunday, we had our first reading for Hairspray the Musical. And if you ever want to feel good about yourself, go practice with a musical with the Golden Triangle Theater. All they do is tell you how awesome you were. And you can be the most off-key, off-tone person. Everybody's like cheering, they're laughing. Every single practice, every single time, all those kids are just like, I call them kids, a lot of them are college kids or some other adults. Everybody in the room is like that. And so that sometimes my identity was like, they're like, this can't be real. And then you start to, same thing, you downplay when you get the fancy award or best pharmacy or best coach or whatever. And, I'm not talking about needing a coach to bring you back down, but I've had times where he broke as a coach, like where I'm telling him something, I'm like, whatever. And he's like, there's no evidence for this whatsoever. Or we've had things. And then I had one time where I told him, I'm like, oh yeah, I got a podcast. Like we had talked before, like, I should do a podcast. I should get out more often, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and it happened. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Or the thing we talked about with Braden working with the mafia guy. He's like, of course that happened. I'm like, yes, of course. That was how obvious that this should have happened with all the kismet and karma in the world, that things should happen for you. So y'all got to say something.
There was
I know
something.
you just said the most emotionally vulnerable thing and talked for 10 minutes, and I'm like, it's on you to say something.
No, there was something you said before that made me think of something, but it fell out of my brain. So
there you go. The only thing I remember is
back.
inpatient therapy. You said inpatient therapy, and I thought that's a great word for it. Coaching is inpatient therapy. Fix me right away. I need it. I don't have time for this.
Well, I do appreciate you being vulnerable. I love Ann Voskamp's quote that shame dies when the truth is told in safe spaces. And to the mental health point, we just opened up our brand new mental health center. And to the manifesting point, I'm telling our staff, because I'm claiming it, like, we will be the best group therapy center in the Golden Triangle, because I'm trying to create that safe space for everyone to come. Whether, I mean, I've got all things in my head. You know, if you're parents of kids with disabilities, you are going through anything like a divorce or infertility, all those different things. When you can gather with just a few people, even around this table, 4 of us have a lot in common, then that community is so healing to like what you've gone through in your past, or what that one guy's comment shifted you. You've got to, not got to, but I highly encourage you to get in that community and then find that safe space to become vulnerable. And then you can begin healing in that way. So.
Yeah. You know, there is something they say in personal development a lot, you know, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that is so true. You like getting responsible for the people you spend the most time with, like, makes all the difference. And sometimes it can be hard or confusing because sometimes it's your spouse that's bringing you down. And I'm not saying to leave them, but if you can somehow offset that and make sure you're bringing people in your life that are more as who you want to be when you grow up type of thing, you'll be surprised at how things just fall into place.
That was part of my path with real estate, not really personal growth, but I came out of the gate and was selling 30, 40, 50, 60 houses a year. And I'm like, I got to find somebody who's selling 100 that makes it tangible, you know? And I went to conferences and it would like sit there and then I'd be like, and he's like, and me and my team, and I'd fold my book and walk out because I was like, I don't need 10 people. I was one guy doing it. And I finally met the one guy, and we weren't perfect personality matches or whatever, but I talked to him for a while and he was really doing it by himself, and he did it. And then I did it once, and I do not ever want to do it again. But it was the same thing. It was like, oh, I can do this and do it. And I had to look for the right person to hang out with. And he was not the right person from a personal growth or holistic life standpoint or whatever, because he was the person I would have been 5 years before, which is I have to work 100 hours a week. My favorite conversation I've ever had about work-life balance was with Ryan Munson about 10 years ago. Ryan owns the pizza place here, but he used to be a stockbroker. And people have different versions of both of us. Colin only does fun stuff. Colin only plays with his kids. Colin only works. And Ryan only goes to the desert and play, or he only makes pizza and works. And he never sees his kids. And neither one of them matters because they're not our work-life balance. So many people are just hooked on this thing of it's got to be that you have to go play with your kids. Like, my kids didn't eat breakfast with me for like 3 years, but I went to every single soccer practice in the afternoon and had time and was present with them. And people, that's part of coaching, is working through the people have these ideas in their head, especially if they have a grown-up job. Like, I don't have a grown-up job. You sort of do now. You kind of, but not a 9 to 5 where somebody else is over you in charge. I haven't had one in 27 years or something. So it's tough when you have that to go, okay, I have to work this time. Those are the people a lot who are like work-life balance because they think that their job has something to do with that, you know, whereas like you're making the sacrifices to pick the times to be with your kids. You don't have to tell anybody that. And sometimes the lesson is that you have to work, and then daddy's got to work sometimes.
It looks different for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was a time period for definitely 15 years where everybody thought like it's part of the generation now where the kids like, hey, you know, I don't want to demean them or whatever, but they're like, well, I need to have my time on this. And I've told my kids, I'm like, y'all should be absolute monsters. But if you want to do what Braden's doing and move to California, like, move to California. Like, never a better time to go than when you're 23 years old or 19 or whatever.
And can we talk about coaching as actual coaches or teachers too? Because I think, you know, it's not like you have to just be a life coach, or there's lots of certifications in there, but just the power of coaching in general. Anybody can coach anyone else, you know, and whether that is your kids or other kids, just the power of, to me, coaches and teachers. And I had done this, spoken to a whole room full of professors actually, and I had them close their eyes and I'm like, raise your hand if a coach or a teacher said something to you that changed your life. And everyone raised their hand, because you can think about just those moments. It was a teacher for me. And I've also had great coaches along the way, but I just wanted to give them a little shout out, because a lot of times these parent volunteers who do the YMCA coaching or Pee Wee football or different things don't get accolades, but they're giving up of their time. And you never know how you can change a little kid's life just by encouraging them.
I wish all adults could be in the spirit of change your life course or your thing the way kids can. Because like I'm right now trying to micromanage a little my daughter, Katie, who's an MSMS, and like the Vanderbilt person comes to school and recruits her, and she's like, I want to live in Vanderbilt. I'm like, just be careful. Why? She's like, well, I want to leave the state because I went to this hard school. I'm like, that's a valid thing to do, but you need to go to the school and look at it. Like, I'll spend every penny I can so you can visit this so that you know, because there's kids at the school there that go just because the commercial was cool. Or one person, my daughter who's at Ole Miss, who's having the time of her life and getting a great education, interned for Lindsay Clemens, attorney at law. And Lindsay Clemens is a rebel. And 2 weeks later, she's like, I'm going to be a rebel. And I think how many times in my life, for everybody, that happens in both directions. We're like, you're working in this environment. You're like, what an incredible opportunity. And my biggest challenge growing up was limiting beliefs. I thought I had to do it all the time. Like I had to work. I worked 40 hours a week throughout high school. I worked hundreds of hours, work. That's the way to get success. And then, even looking back at the lessons, I'm like, it didn't really, it worked for life lessons, but it didn't really work out, And I'm like, oh, okay, now not just systems or being smarter, but like, this doesn't equal that. But you can convince your kids of that quite easily. Like especially the younger they are, that like, if they put their head down and work, you're going to win everything. And then, as we were talking before, like sometimes things magically work out. It's been the most productive thing you've taught me is to write those down. Things that have magically worked out. Most of my stress, actually, since he's kind of got me over the edge, has been for my kids or for my family. Hasn't really been, oh, this deal's not going to work out. It's been, oh, is my kid going to get into this specific college, And I could blink my eyes 3 months later. They're in or they're not. But so far, everything's worked out.
It always does.
It always does.
It can't be any other way.
No, that's one of the most valuable things I tell people all the time. Everything's worked out till today. You're doing all right,
But I think everything you just talked about is like you're creating that environment. And that's, I think, the difference for a lot of our own upbringings was, our parents were protecting us from the world. And while that's important and great and all, that comes with a cost. And that cost is that the world is dangerous. And if the world is dangerous, I'm going to interact with it a certain way. But if I'm teaching my kids that anything is possible and everything is happening for them, then they're going to be able to take those opportunities. And I think that's also why coaches and teachers tend to have such a big impact on us. And if only human beings can adopt this in general, is like, if we can, all they're doing is seeing the best in us, looking at us as someone who's already capable of greatness, not this idea that you have to prove your worth. No, I already proved my worth. I beat out, 400 million sperm cells to be here. I've won the race.
You could have been a tree.
I've won the race, and I think if we can actually view everyone that we interact with as like, you're here because you matter. Like there's nothing in existence that's an accident or subpar. Like everything has a very specific role that matters. Like, like bees think the point of bees is to make honey. For the bee, that's its perspective, but bees are responsible for a large part of our ecosystem because of all the pollination that they do, but bees may not be aware of it. That's simply how they go about making honey. And I think if we can just interact with each other that way, I know that may sound a bit like utopian, but I guess if I can just do it for the immediate people I interact with, I'm like, what's the sort of effect?
Well, when it works, it works. I can think of the days I'm floating or, I made the call to bring my daughter to the Sugar Bowl with money I didn't have for an experience that I thought she'd never have a chance. And they somehow won the game at the last minute 3 times because it kept happening over and over for some reason. But we were talking in the fourth quarter, like she's like, what are you doing? She was like, close her eyes. I'm like, connect to the emotion of them winning, not them winning. And I was like, they are not us. I was like, these are college kids who don't know that they're not supposed to win that game. They had no idea. I'm going to wrangle it back into the practical part of coaching. So I heard Tony Robbins a couple weeks ago on a YouTube thing talk about how he has 4 or 5 coaches for himself. And Tony Robbins is one of the guys that really took it from Jim Rome into organized coaching. Some of it was financial for him, but part of it was, a lot of it seems to be helping people because now he's got too much money and he's putting out a lot of content for free. And he talked about how the biggest breakthrough for him, like 11 years ago, he mentioned, 2016, was that he would surround himself with friends and gurus and all this sort of stuff, but not everybody wants to tell Tony Robbins something. And that happens at a job like yours. Like somebody probably doesn't want to tell you that you misstepped or your boss or even going down there. And you'd be shocked when you ask them. Like you said about talking to African-American employees. Like, is anything wrong? And you're like, I'm doing a good job. I'm woke, this. And then they're like, well, actually, the world is hurting us. And that's what he said. He was just like, well, sometimes you go on and do that, do this. And he's like, me? And then he'd watch a video of it or something. He's like, thank God you told me. It wasn't even silly things on stage, but he's like, I had to overcome being a salesman-y guy 40 years ago to being actual helping people because I don't need the money anymore. Sorry, I'm choking up. Talk.
I love another quote too, and it's again from Michael Hyatt, but I put it in my calendar on the 20th of every month. And it says, what about my leadership led to this? So then I try to think about that's, towards the end of the month, but thinking through what's worked well and what's not worked well. And then what part did I have in either one of those? And then they had some great questions, which I'll have to send to you, but you want to ask your staff those questions and make them squirm a little bit, but we've built trust over the years that they know they can answer. So one of those, and I'll just sit them around probably once a year and look around and say, what am I doing that gets on your nerves? And so then they sit there and wait a minute. And then once one goes, I make them all answer the question.
I'm hearing the printer go.
But yeah, it's actually really helpful because then I know what habits or decisions I need to change. And we've had some reform over the years, like just all kinds of different things that I was doing that I didn't realize had this ripple effect. And so as a leader, you need to know, like, you're not perfect to that point. And there's lots of things that could be better. And that's why I think coaching's so valuable, because you guys can see that in your clients and like, well, this is a problem I'm seeing. And then we can fix it. And we work well together now.
I like that. And that practice of asking that question, it also works in the home with your kids, even though it can, like, you have to, me personally, I had to like prepare my mind ahead of time to not be defensive and be like, well, you see, you're young and immature, so you don't see why I'm doing this action. I couldn't do that. But yeah, I made the practice of sitting down with my 5 sons. Well, my youngest is 4, so I don't know if he can really answer it, but asking similar questions. And at first it was the same thing. They would be like, nothing, you're perfect, Mom. I'm like, okay, seriously, guys, no. Give me something. And sure enough, there was something that I could change or adjust. And I feel like it opens up that communication. It builds trust, sets you up as a better servant leader. And it also creates just a more connected family culture, which to me can transcend to business, teams, and anywhere you are.
Next week's episode of the Good for Business podcast will be a full episode with my wife on how I irritate her. Again, the printer's satellites are talking, going down.
You may need to book the whole day.
The lights just dimmed a little because she calls it OCing. When I come home from a day like this and then I go to 2 or 3 events and I sit in the corner and she's like, Daddy's over Colin today. And I just sit there because like, I'm like this at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh my God, this. And she's like, okay, son, like, go to bed. Talk about separating week too. Coaching your kids from raising your kids. You and I touched on that a little.
Yeah. I'll let Amy go first. Or
do you coach your kids? Because I mean, the older the kids are, the more I'm like, hey, you got to think about how this is in your mind. What that would make you feel. And they're like, I just like their football team, Dad.
Right. No,
doesn't have to be that deep.
Yeah. I know. Sometimes my kids, I get on their nerves. I like to ask a lot of questions, and then not open-ended questions, because you do get to dig a little deeper. I do enjoy coaching my kids and just trying to, what you were saying is reframing their position. A lot of times it goes back to the gratitude talk too. Like if they're complaining about something and then I say, okay, now name 5 things you're grateful for. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you can see the shift in the car and it's like, okay, actually we've got a lot to be thankful for right now. Mm. So I do, I do enjoy coaching my kids, and I probably get on their nerves a lot.
Same. Yeah.
Well, they'll probably hear it 20 years from now. I've been blessed with the older one where she's like really embraced some of the stuff, with the pressures that go to school. Like we used to tell about our middle kid, we weren't worried about her. Like we used to throw her out in the woods and she'd be fine. But in reality, it was the older one who's had more conversations about stuff and was an adult when my wife went through her health challenges. You talked to me last time about coaching your kids. Do you have to take a deep breath sometimes when you're doing it?
Absolutely.
Now, by the way, she's got one kid that's like 7 foot tall and one that's this tall.
Yeah, they're 4 to 17, so it's a kid in almost every stage right now. And so
They're all boys. Again,
yeah,
like
they're all
reiterate.
boys. So for example, the 17-year-old, he's at a place where I am sort of offering coaching invitations more because he's trying to figure out what he wants to do next and where he wants to stay, how he wants, like, what does success look like for him. And he's also highly independent, and he also doesn't like other people telling him what he should be doing. He likes to figure it out on his own. So it's this weird balance between, okay, would you like me to listen, or would you like help finding a solution? I think just asking that question, it's essentially asking, do you want me to be mom right now, or do you want me to be coach? And sometimes he's ready to actually dive deeper, and other times he's like, no, just listen to me complain and, you know, don't board vomit all over, and then I'll figure it out on my own.
I can't tell you when the kids get older how hard it is not to try to manipulate them. Like I'm talking about this college thing, like go anywhere you want. Man, old Miss is killing it today. Would you like to go up there and get some ice cream, you know,
Yeah.
in-state tuition ice cream? Yaakov, what about with your kiddo?
I do have 2 older kids from my previous marriage, and I don't really get to be in their lives as much as I would like. But I try to ask that question to myself and to them, like, what do you need from me in that moment? That's because for me, coaching is almost a default mode. Like,
Yep.
I like that. I want to share this gift of this view to everybody. And sometimes it's just like, dude, shut up. Like, I just need you to listen to me. But with my 4-year-old, and this I learned from my wife, where she'll just be like, she's very into like focusing like where he's at in his development, and just recognizing that certain things they have nothing to do with anything, simply that his brain is developing this part and it's uncomfortable and it looks like this, that, and the other thing. So I just try to be that like a safe space or an environment. And it's like, if he needs to throw a tantrum, like, make sure there's no sharp objects around, like anything he can hit his head on or throw or hurt me, and just, do you need a hug now? Like, I find like this isn't who I was when my older kids were this age. And it kind of makes me a little sad that I didn't get to be that way for them. But we also all have our own journey, and we needed all those things in the beginning that had us show up however we are. Like, you know, we're never going to protect our kids from the lessons they're meant to learn here. And that kind of sucks, but
Yeah.
I do think being vulnerable as a parent is healthy, because they need to know we're not perfect too.
Yes.
And, you know, I have raised my voice and I have yelled. And even when they were 4 or younger, I just remember getting on their level and then apologizing. Like, I lost my temper and I'm sorry. And they remember those moments, because I think some parents I think we talked about it earlier, that, you know, I have to have it all together. Well, none of us do. It's our first time to do it, you know? And I remember a story. Bryson was probably 5, and he had spilled my coffee, you know, my brand new mug and hot coffee, and it went everywhere. And you have just a split second to like yell and be mad, or like I took a deep breath and I got on my knee and I said, hey, Bryson, I've broken a mug and I've spilled coffee before too. I'm like, it's going to be okay. Like, just go in that other room, you know? But he still will talk about that sometimes. Like, remember when you didn't like yell at me? And so those coachable moments, you know, are just, I don't know, important for parents to remember. We don't have it all together.
And it's so fun, actually, when you see your kids sort of implementing the things that you've coached them through. Like my 11-year-old the other day, I forget what happened. I'd like dropped something and was just cleaning up, and oh, no. one of the dishes I made, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. So it was okay, but it wasn't like super good. I'm like, I wish that was better. He's like, you know what? That's the good thing about failure, Mom, is you just learn. It just is a great way to learn and make it better next time. I was like, thanks. But it was so true. I was like, okay, you made me feel a little bit better. He's like, and plus we didn't have to give it to the chickens. We were able to eat it. You're right. You're
training him well.
We talked about it on my episode where I overheard my kids while I was teaching the middle kid, Katie, to drive. And I was in the other room, like came out of the shower, and they were all talking. They're like, and then he goes, hey, Katie, listen, when you cross the intersection, you roll the stop sign. You almost killed that guy. You almost killed. It's okay. It's okay. don't be mad. And then they just went on a whole tangent of like, yeah, I mean, you burn the sorority house down. Don't put, look, it's okay. A couple of people are dead. We'll pay the legal bill. I'm not mad. I'm like, that's pretty good. You know what I mean? It's not spilled milk, but they had exacerbated it into a bigger worldwide issue. Just kept going. And like, we invaded, they didn't say Venezuela, but we invaded the country. It was good. I'm not mad at you. Man. So I'm glad I've had that, because my parents were just like normal. So like you said, you go through generations of parents. It's the older you go, the tougher it was, to think of what they were going through. And I like the quote, especially with multiple kids, that each of your kids was raised by different parents because of what you've learned and what you've been through, and the lessons from the, now again, our third kid's a little wilder than the other two. How does the paradigm fit into 5 kids? Because you have the 3-kid paradigm is absolutely true. Everyone I know has 3 kids. The oldest kid's a princess. The youngest one's wild. Middle one's kind of quiet,
I don't know. I feel like my middle one is probably the wildest one. And one of my youngest, whose name is Wild, he's like the calmest, chillest one. So it's a little backwards. But yeah, my oldest definitely like noticed as I learned how to parent better over the years, he would notice how I parented the younger ones versus him. And he's like, you didn't do that to me. And it's like, you were the guinea pig. Okay. And so we can laugh about it now. But yeah, it's as you grow and your kids grow, it's just like Amy said, it's every day is a totally new day. You're parenting totally new kids with every stage, with every growth spurt. You become a new person, and yeah, feel like you're figuring out as you go. And it just, you got to cling to that. I forget who the quote was by, maybe, but it was essentially forgive yourself for the version of you who didn't know any better. It's like, I have to do that every day.
Got weeks of that.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about the practical part of coaching, which every coach would be different for every client, and every client within that coaching thing would be different. What's the practical, like, onboarding stuff? So somebody calls you, says, I think I want coaching. Do you talk to them for free for once, or do you do it, or do you set up a personality evaluation? Do you just look at my criminal record, and do you automatically just take me on?
Who do you want? Okay.
Either one.
Well, for me, I typically hop on a free consult. We figure out where are you at? Where do you want to go? Are we a good fit? I give them kind of a life assessment with different scores on different life categories. Where are you at? What does success look like by the end of this, 12-week program? We'll customize a package for them, and then we work one-on-one. They can pick an hour a week, an hour a month, and yeah, we just work through the high performance methods and the curriculum I have, and we help them get where they want to go. And
does that include fitness?
It sort of, like, not specifically, unless that is a high marker on their specific goals. Because I mean, in high performance, yes, your health and your fitness is a huge part of how you interact with the world. It's huge part of how you treat others. It's a huge part of how you lead. The better you feel, the better you lead. And so we definitely incorporate that into it without me becoming a personal trainer on the side.
Yeah, speaking of which, so do you have a business coach, a life coach, and a fitness coach? Because I know you're huge into fitness.
I guess I have my own fitness coach. I used to teach aerobics for 15 years. But I do. It's a very important part of my day. It's a non-negotial.
Absolutely.
Is that why they got out of the donut business? Again, there was a gas station.
We turned it into a beer cave.
Pharmacy and donuts at the same place.
And now a beer cave is in there.
And now they have beer.
We took out the pharmacy and put the beer, so everybody's happy. Yeah. No, fitness is so, and I think people underestimate, to your point of just, are you drinking enough? Are you sleeping enough? Are you moving? It doesn't have to be exercise, but your body needs movement. At the minimum, those 10,000 steps just to move around. People get intimidated by the word exercise, especially at the beginning of the year. They're like, what do I do? Where do I start? And it's really just moving. Yeah.
And figuring out, it's like, what do you enjoy? Like, if you hate lifting weights, don't go to the gym. If you love playing tennis, great. Go play tennis. Find a friend, meet up with them. Go play it. But if it's something you enjoy, you tend to last longer doing it. And I agree with it being a non-negotiable, because my goal is to out-energy my kids up until I'm like past grandma age. I'll be on my deathbed, still be able to outrun my grandkids. So that's my goal.
150.
That's right. And a lot of, if you think about practical goals, I've got some friends that are becoming grandparents and they're like, I want to be able to sit comfortably on the floor and play with my grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like? What exercises or movements do I need to do to make sure I can function as a cool grandparent playing on the floor? Okay, well, that's motivating. Whatever motivates you works.
Absolutely.
Yaakov, what would you talk about, like onboarding somebody, whether it's
So
life or business? The interesting part about coaching overall is it seems to be nationwide. It's much easier to get somebody to come in and be a business. Tanya Dukes, who's on our podcast that's coming out the day after we record this, she's a life coach, but business coach. But I'm pretty sure she reels people in on the business. I just talked to one of her clients yesterday. They're like, yeah, she gets me in the business stuff, and then we end up she tells me to get my bank account together and get this organized. But most of it ends up becoming life stuff because it's all intertangled. So you're predominantly a life coach. Is that what I can say?
yeah, I mean, for me, I think you can really only coach on what your experience has been, and unlike Tanya Dukes, I haven't had a tremendous amount of time in the corporate world, making a difference there. So for me, I'll usually start off with a free, what do I call
Consultation.
it? Yeah, something like a discovery session, or just to get to know the person, because if we're not I want to see where you're at. You may not like me. And I want to see if we can, if
Sorry.
if
I can't
if I think I could even make a difference for you. And then from there, if you decide that you want to work together, I will send you a evaluation. You probably remember filling that out. It's pretty intense. Goes through all different areas of your life just to really get an idea of where you're at, what your perspective is. And because for me, I mean, essentially, the coaching for me really comes down to helping a person learn to operate from a place of gratitude, where the world is everything is happening for me. I mean, that's the point of my coaching, because for me, that's where everything in my life started shifting. That's where the ability to start making more money, interact, have better relations, like absolutely everything shifted for me. And that's what I want to share with people. And I think I don't care if you're a business person or a stay-at-home mom, that is what's going to allow you to be successful and make a difference in whatever you're doing.
like that.
The statistics have been the same way for years, that 10% of people ever attempt any personal growth stuff in their life, and only 1%, air quote, stick with it over a long period of time, including conferences and all that other sort of stuff. What kind of marketing do y'all have to do to get people? I know, Annebelle, you do stuff. I know you do posts, and some of them, when I first met you, when I first recognized you, seemed to be a little more coaching focused, and now at least the stuff I see on Instagram is more like your family and your daily life, and then a lesson thrown in there.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know. I have fun on social media. That used to be my kind of main marketing source when I was with health and fitness coaching. But with the high performance coaching, leadership coaching, that's been 100% referrals from people. So I don't know that my social media brings in many people, but it does. I don't know. It's a great way that I feel like I can just serve, sort of use it as both a family memory diary in a way, and also share a lesson in every single thing that I put out there, and share a little glimpse of what coaching can look like, or personal development can look like in a real life scenario. But yeah, most of my clients have come to me from just referrals, and people loving working with me and sending me a friend.
Well, and it's a big referral. It's very, like I talk about financial advisors in our BNI networking group, and real estate agents are kind of tough to refer because it's such a big commitment. And if God, Lord knows, when you refer a handyman or somebody to fix a toilet and they don't do right, you hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine a life coach scenario where they're like, you ruined my life.
Right.
Although that it's hard. And for you, Yaakov, I know when you're...
My clients also, they come from referrals. I want to be able to market myself. It's just, that's been a ongoing struggle. I'm working through it.
We both need to coach each other on that. He has suggested several times that I should be a coach, and he knows I cower into it like I'm a little child. It's too big of a concept for me, I believe is the phrase I said amongst my other things in life. So I should probably do it.
You'd make an excellent real estate coach.
Yeah, you would.
Maybe one
Mhm.
day.
Oh, look, agreement.
Small business. I did have a breakthrough with that where some people, Josh included, he's like, you just need to be a marketing and small business coach. So I have plenty of time to do it, though. So I'm excited. I'm a little bored right now. If Colin Krieger, Remax Partners, 329 sold. If you're looking for any business in there. And that's part of the big commitment to that. It's just like we were talking about my issue with a friend who was doing it. Like, it's kind of an investment. It's been one of the best investments of my life, but it's an investment.
Mhm.
And some people don't think they can do it until they do it. And some people think they can't afford it and they're just missing it. But it's a big hit for you on your side and on their side when they don't.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting sort of close to the end. So I'm going to start with Amy. If you want to give them your minute elevator pitch. Not that you're selling anything, but I think people may want to come work for you now
Well, that would be
or to
great.
be around you. Are you in any civic groups or Rotary Kiwanis Exchange?
Rotary,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
So like, if they want to come see you at work or come find you, or just come work out with you and hang out.
Yeah, I'm mostly at Allegro Plaza on the corner of 45 and Blue Cut. I guess I want to wrap up by just saying, don't do life alone. Like, you need to be around community and friends and like-minded people, to your point of the 5 closest people around you, and that everyone struggles in some capacity with a mental health type of issue, anxiety, depression, whatever it might be. And you don't have to feel on an island. Just don't do it alone. Whether that's coming to get some clinical help with a therapist or medical help, or really with a coach, come sign up with one of these 2 amazing coaches and they'll help make your life better.
Yaakov, when you're not in a fire truck, how do we find you? He's very easy to find, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can find me on social media, coach_Yaakov. That's Yaakov as in Victor. But as much as I do love working with people, and for me, I'll put it out there. The reason why I coach is it forces me to stay in my own personal development. So I continue working on myself, and now I get to get paid doing it. But more than just the opportunity to work with someone, I really, my wish is just that people get who they are and what they're capable of. You do not need to settle for anything in your life. Your dreams are not there to torture and tease you. They're meant to inspire you. And if we can just learn to look at our past and see what we've overcome and use that as inspiration, which is, our dreams, to see, oh, wow, that's what I would like to work towards, our lives would look completely different. And like, Amy said, definitely don't do it alone. It doesn't have to be a coach. It could be a friend. If you would,
I'm so sorry.
if you would like it to be a coach, feel free to reach out to me or
Right.
Annebelle, but
All right.
or find someone. Do not do it alone.
Good deal. All right. Give me your elevator pitch.
Hi, I'm Annabelle. I'm a leadership coach. No, I think one of my main life mottos is everything is figure outable. So rise up, take courage, and do it. I use my personal experience of escaping, life-threatening situations and making my life better from it, and use my perspectives to just help leaders lead better with more clarity, more courage, more energy, without it costing them their health and their relationships. I believe that success is overall your whole life, and it doesn't need to cost you your home life to have business success. And so I like to help bridge the gap and help people create that harmony so it all rises. And you can find me at Annebelle Davies on Instagram. That's probably the easiest one.
Other
My
than the
name-
misspelling of your name.
Yes, I know. My name is misspelled. It's ANNEBELLE. And you can also find me at AnnebelleDavies.com, and you can get a free consult from there.
As somebody who has a name that's very close to one of the very dismal human organ, I don't want I don't make fun of people who have misspelled names like you, because Colin can result in a lot of torture both in kindergarten and in life. Although I do, when you talk about the reticular activator, hearing business, like you said, you love hearing your name or whatever, everyone does. It's tough because I'll be places and they're like, I'm Colin, I'm like this. And I'm just like, when I'm on, I'm like, they talking about me? And they're like, no, they're talking about Colin, their friend. One last thing I did think about, can any of y'all touch on, or all touch on there's not much of a difference, but there is, and people may be thinking it incorrectly, is there a difference between therapy and coaching? Because I know they intertangle quite a bit. just because issues come up, just like the issues we all brought up today. So, I want to speak on that.
Yeah. My simplified explanation of it, because a friend just asked me the other day, and my simplified version of it is therapy takes where you are and helps you look at your past and sort of identify some areas that you're struggling with so you can heal from that. Coaching takes where you are now and looks at your future and takes you where you want to go. And so that's why I feel like therapy and coaching work so well together, because when you can integrate both of them, you become more of a powerhouse than you already are.
Yeah, I can only come from my male, whatever Enneagram number that I'm sure y'all all know that I am. I'm not sure which one it is. That I'm like, oh, it's 2 for 1. That's how I feel about it. I was like, oh, you're getting to talk about both things, especially for me when I've like so much of my time is speaking to me in the past and going, it's okay. Like this is why you're nervous about that.
I think therapy has come a long way over the years. I think the therapy that I grew up with was much more talk therapy centered. So I think therapy has its place. For me, therapy didn't help much. Although one of my closest friends is a psychotherapist, and just in conversations we've had together, I've grown a lot. So I also know that it like you said, like it definitely has its place, but I think the way you articulated the difference between coaching and therapy is spot on. And I think a good coach will do some therapeutic elements in the process. It's unavoidable. The human is just the human. Can't really separate it that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a fine line, because when you're with a therapist, they're licensed with the state. There's a lot of rules that go with it, where coaching is a little bit more freer. And they always, in our coaching training, they make sure to teach you cannot go into that therapy mindset,
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a fine line. But I love Miles Adcox owns Onsite. And to your point of how therapy's changed over the years, he tells a story about going to the Grammys about 10 years ago, and nobody wanted to talk to him because if you knew Miles, then you had been to Onsite. So over the past 10 years, he's really changed that narrative that therapy and coaching can help prevent you from the fall. So all these country artists that go on tour, 99% of them have a fall at some point in their tour. Well, he's taught them how to prepare them for that. So I want to kind of help change that stigma. If you're in therapy, it's not that something's wrong. Sometimes you can prevent. I go to therapy too, and I think it prevents my fall from different stressors. And I've got a therapist and I have a coach, and there are two different things. But I love that the stigma is changing, and I think that both are very healthy. And you need to get things out loud. You need to say them out loud.
You need to verbally process sometimes.
Do. Yeah, and have somebody to bounce it off from or with.
Yeah, talking out loud is one of the most important things that all of society needs right now, where people are talking to fake people online and not getting through and not understanding. And as my credo has been with a lot of my marketing, I should say now, some marketing clients, people for some reason that I'm coaching in marketing but not officially coaching, is that you have to do this in real life. Like right now, there's going to be separation over the next couple of years, in my opinion, of AI. You need to do both, of AI and real life. We have an entire generation of kids out at the Air Force Base and younger than 30 that they're digesting some social media but not posting anything on there. Or they're just posting in their friend group, like the 5 or 6 people, and they're sharing that like on WhatsApp or something. But there's a whole bunch of them at the base that like, I'm like, Facebook? They're like, no. I'm like, Instagram? They're like, no. I'm like, TikTok? Like, we can't. Like, we might give away a government secret. Then they tell their wife the same thing or their husband the same thing, and they just stay quiet and they're pretty happy, And I said, the only thing I push for is I want more interaction with like local news and stuff. I'm putting good news out just so people know things. There was a glorious time in 2019 before COVID when every single person was on Facebook and every event was on Facebook, and you just went on there. And there's still no aggregator. But once our almighty and powerful AI overlords, all praise AI, take over in a few years, hopefully it'll all be in one place and you'll know everything that's going on today. So any final words other than yay?
I like that. Yeah.
Yay is good enough.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I go to the theater, I talk to people and have lunch with people and do this for energy. And I appreciate all the energy y'all brought in the room today. And maybe we'll do it, or we should do it again, or we can just go have lunch. So if y'all need to track down any people, we'll put it in the podcast notes down here. I'll have somebody important do that. Otherwise, thanks for joining me. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX Partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705 or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD.